Good morning, everybody. It's so cool to be in Israel for the Global Wellness Summit and to kick off our podcast recording. I am sitting here with the rock star of the agenda, Simon Shelley, the Vice President of Programming Partnerships from BBC StoryWorks. Why is this so important? Simon, what happened last night? Can you tell us?
We launched a brand new series, BBC StoryWorks, in partnership with the Global Wellness Institute, In Pursuit of Wellness, the art and science of living well. And we've been fascinated by wellness for many years now. And this has been about 10 months in the making, in terms of telling stories across the globe, defining wellness, what is wellness, are we well, and how we encourage people to be on a pursuit of individual and collective well-being.
Well, to give you a little backstory to our dear listeners, you know, in the wellness world, we've been a small tribe, and we're like, well, we're telling each other it's such a good idea. How do we get this message out to the world? And we're so proud of the Global Wellness Summit and Institute because of all the research they're doing. And Susie Ellis, the founder, made the decision to make it free and available to all. But you just kind of wonder, is anyone paying attention? But then, so how did you find the Global Wellness Institute? Because when the BBC pays attention and says, hold my hand, we're going to do a program together, it's kind of the big time.
Yeah, I mean, wellness is ubiquitous. The term, I think, is very prevalent. 60 million hashtags saying wellness on Instagram at the moment. So it's broadly used. And we wanted to try and understand what wellness means in that sense, individually, as I mentioned, collectively. We know there's so many disciplines and different ways and different tools and techniques of how people believe they're keeping well. And a lot of people don't even realize that they're using wellness techniques and tools. So that was a really important thing for us. And then, of course, we've done a lot of work at the BBC on non-communicable diseases. We were asking the question, I think, at the outset, are we well as a society? Are we fitter, healthier than ever before, given all of our medical technology, our science, our societal awareness,
and
our
our
knowledge?
Passion about wellness, proactive wellness.
Right. If 60 million people are using wellness as a hashtag, then surely we know a thing or two about looking after ourselves. But of course, we're killed by lifestyle. We choose how we die, seemingly. We did a lot of work, as I mentioned, with non-communicable diseases, which make up 75% of deaths. So heart failure, diabetes, stroke, and so many of those are preventable.
Depressing, really.
Yeah, and it really is. It is depressing, and obviously you can see trends in certain parts of the world, and you start to think, well, if there is the knowledge, if there is the technology, if there is the understanding of what keeps us well, then why are we not able to take that on board and be better?
Stay well, fight back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, of course, with all of this, we're looking at how do we depict this on a series? And going back a step, on BBC.com around the world, it does tend to be headlines. It does tend to be very snackable news.
And I have a confession, Simon.
Yes.
When you're from America, you think, oh, I'm watching news, but it can't be as good as the BBC. And you expect two anchors, very serious, not talking about what they ate for lunch or where they got their hair done, really getting to the heart of the news globally, not a lot of fluff. But I tell you, when I visited your portal and the platform where we can watch the good work you've done over 10 months, it was beautiful. It was so well produced. I was like, is this the BBC? Because it should be harsh and more newsy. It was more like a Netflix documentary or something.
Okay.
Is that what it's supposed
I'll
to
take
be?
that as a compliment. Yes. Netflix. Who are they? No. Well, the important thing, this isn't news, but we look at the news agenda to look at the themes that we want to delve deeper into. So if they're talking in headlines across the news, then there does seem to be some trends, some issues that require a deeper exploration. And for our part of the BBC, so BBC StoryWorks is a brand studio, part of BBC Studios, which is the international and creative arm of the BBC. So it makes Doctor Who, Strictly Come Dancing, all those Green Planet, all those shows that hopefully you know of. But we've got a part called BBC StoryWorks where we form partnerships with organisations to be able to tell that deeper story in a different way, in a way that will be consumed, as you say, maybe in a Netflix style. What's important there is if we're going deeper into a particular area, is that we have the facts, that we can get accuracy, that we know what themes and what stories we should be bringing to screen. And that's where the Global Wellness Institute came in. We were looking at evidence of wellness. We were looking at science that now underpins a lot of the techniques and tools that I think were once seen as a bit fringe.
Right, like sound therapy, like, I don't know, ice, soaking in ice or something, right?
Yeah. How would you refer to those types of...
Contrast, you kind of say alternative. And you could also say woo-woo.
Woo-woo. Okay.
That's a good one. I'll let you use that whenever you want.
Yeah. All right. Okay. We'll go with that. Yeah. I thought fringe was being kind. But they were seen as a little bit out there, complimentary. But of course, we know so many of those techniques now have got not just years, like decades of evidence. And so we were looking for that. And that's the Global Wellness Institute. So we thought that's a great partnership.
Well, it is funny. 5,000 years of Chinese medicine can't be wrong, right? Acupuncture, not until it was studied by the National Institutes of Health did people go, oh yeah, it does help reduce pain, But it is a pivotal time, I think, historically in wellness for the merger of the two of you. Let's think back to just a year ago in Boston when you first were unveiled, you and your colleagues from BBC StoryWorks at the Global Wellness Summit Boston. And I'll be honest, that was a baptism by fire for you, Simon. I mean, you were inundated by people going, what about this story? What about that story? Yeah. Tell us how you honed in on what exactly to focus on, because there's so much happening.
There was so much, and it was really, really difficult. We found that a challenge, actually. So we looked at some core questions that we wanted to answer. I mentioned defining wellness and are we well? I think there's an existential question about wellness and conventional healthcare. So how tools and techniques that now have got a weight of evidence behind it can be integrated into healthcare settings. I suppose that the challenge of that, and it's the mindset of that, I think, from healthcare professionals, and how you form that integration and how much that's driven by consumers.
Right.
So we wanted some stories that spoke to that. And I think off the back of that, we looked at particular groups in society that we wanted stories to speak to. So whether that's women's health, I mean, it's just staggering when we started to understand how poorly the needs of women are treated in dosed as small men. I think was has been the phrase for many years. Just staggering.
Would you say they're just small men?
Well, I mean, they're because of the lack of clinical trials,
right.
Medicines for women.
Remember yesterday we had that crazy speaker. I called her the vagina lady because she wasn't afraid to just talk about all those things.
Yes,
which we usually like sweep under the rug. But we did an interview with a woman in America that does the WHAM report. She goes right to corporations and say, do women focused research. But to bring it to the masses, that's an elite group of people that would know how to get to research institutions. But this potential for the BBC StoryWorks to really go to the common person and say, oh, you had that sound bowl class offered at your neighborhood gym. This is why it really works. I mean, that's power.
Yes.
That's help.
Yeah. I think the key thing in these stories, and actually how we chose the stories and framed it, yes, there's the themes. So talking about wellness and healthcare, talking about wellness by design, but there was also the characters that we wanted to bring forward. It had to be human-centric. We wanted to... Well, I think really when it comes to wellness, what we're looking to do is tell stories where people, audiences, see themselves in that story. Mm-hmm. Because it might affirm what they're already doing. It might... the dream would be that it gets someone starting a wellness routine, gets them on their journey, and it might, and so that you've got the full spectrum. You've got people who might see themselves because they're really into wellness and they've already followed it, or we might, and again, this is the real dream, is that we get some skeptics won over by thinking, wow, actually, I'd do that anyway.
Yesterday I was looking at your launch portal and the story for Mindstream, and I saw the mother explaining about her beautiful little baby who all of a sudden started acting differently and wouldn't focus and things. And of course, he was autistic and how music helped him. But were you involved in that story? Because that expert music teacher really touched my heart. I'm a mom. And to hear someone say, kids that are autistic, words sometimes are negative. It's like, don't touch this, don't fall. But music isn't judgmental. It just is there to embrace you. What did you take away from that story?
Absolutely. I mean, that was a story that we wanted to bring to fore. Actually, when we started speaking with Mindstream, there were an array of stories, and there's a beautiful article as well on this series with Chuck Wilde, who's one of the musicians that they speak to, who has started creating music that can help people with anxiety, who struggle with sleep, and just an amazing use of music. We all know that music can impact us, can make us feel things, but this again is a great example of where there is a real weight of evidence now behind why it makes us feel things in different ways, what it's doing to our brain. And of course, you saw the experts on that film. They've been doing this for 30, 40 years, studying how music affects us. So to see that used so effectively with neurodiverse children in Ireland is an amazing story. And those exactly the types of stories that we want to bring forward.
Because it's also touching the heart of someone that might be the listener with a challenge like that. Now, here's an option I might use. Now, give me some other details of, the stories you have 20, right, in this series right now?
Yep.
Until, of course, you're so inspired you keep going with it, we hope. But what are some of the other stories that really impress you? Probably all of them.
Yeah, there's lots to go through. And again, we trying to have that full spectrum, try to take a little bit from all parts of wellness. We look at women's health, in particular pregnancy, and in certain parts of the world, making sure that women who are pregnant get the care that they need holistically, which
like multivitamins,
right? Exactly,
nutrition,
exactly. We look at continuing that thread. We look at women who we talked to someone with the National Association of Sports Medicine, women who have had an obsession with fitness, with the way that they eat, and the negativity that can surround that. And there's a balance between that physical journey that they're trying to go on, but the mental, spiritual journey as well. And it's not just pushing their bodies. And there's different ways to consider how one keeps healthy. So that's a really, really powerful film. We cover a lot of wellness by design. And what we mean by that is that there is a sense of collective community wellness, a culture of wellness. When we first started thinking about wellness and looking at a lot of stories, they tended to be about the individual. So you individually, are you going to, with purpose and intention, take up something that's going to make you feel better or function at your best? But obviously, as you get into it, you realize that this is a collective thing as society, and it might not always be the responsibility of the individual. There are others that need to be responsible for groups of wellness, and so, for example, employers, the way that offices are set up, the way that workplace function,
wellness,
and so there's a lot about that on the series that you'll see, in the thought that's going into that, and of course the benefits as well. It's not just reducing absenteeism; it's increasing productivity, happiness. The ripple effect of that is huge.
Happy employees make more productive offices, on and on and on. I think you interviewed Veronica Schreiber-Smith, a wellness architect, who's right out of Central Casting. She lives in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. She's so beautiful, but she's also smart and good at what she does. So that's fun. So that'll be fun. She's a mom of 3. And I know you went deep into the story of Chuck Wilde, the founder of Liquid Mind. Sorry, Liquid Sound. Is it Liquid Mind? Yes, Liquid Mind.
Yes.
I always get that mixed up. Liquid Mind is one of the most popular downloads on Pandora. I don't know if you have Pandora in England, do you?
No.
Okay, Pandora.
Well, maybe we do. I don't.
Pandora is like Spotify, and you can make your own playlists and all. Chuck Wilde's Liquid Mind has as many downloads as Cardi B or Adele. And his
Yeah.
backstory, he worked in the music world. He was a producer on a big TV show. He traveled with a band and he was frying his own brain. He was burning himself out. So he had a nervous breakdown. And part of his healing was to compose music to relax by, to sleep by. And now he's that popular. How many years later? 20 or something more? But he says the biggest compliment you can give him is to fall asleep to his music. And clearly a lot of people are doing it. So you're telling the backstory. Now, people at home might have just clicked on Liquid Mind and not known how that all came to be. So that's an opportunity, for them to really take it to heart. The other thing I wanted to know is that when anyone is exposed to wellness, like you and your team, I mean, you walked in, like I said, and baptized by fire. What has been the reaction on your team, your staff at the BBC, to all this exposure? Have you heard people going, well, damn, I will take algae pills or anything like that?
Oh, definitely. We've lived it massively, and there was it was a broad spectrum. There's many parts of the team that were very into wellness, or what they thought was wellness. And this is the fascinating thing at the start, because we mentioned how broadly the term wellness is used, and of course the first thing that we do is we sit down as a team, we go wider in the BBC, and we say, what does wellness mean to you? And variety of different answers, but many do veer towards it being costly and expensive pursuit. Spas. Sure. Gwyneth Paltrow was mentioned a number of times.
Goop, yeah.
And so we immediately realised that actually we need to think about the definition. But there were some skeptics, some skeptics who thought, well, actually that's not for me.
I'm so glad you had skeptics. I'm so glad, because when you convince skeptics, then you're really making progress. But what I love is in the explanation of the series, it says it shines a light on wellness practices at work all around us, and how the very act of being human, moving, laughing, breathing, celebrating, giving, and appreciating, gratefulness, can transform our health and well-being. I think that's the real underlying message that people don't realize about wellness.
It's huge. And certainly this is what struck me when in Boston last year at the summit, and as we were going through the research, is that and talking about the team, I think the thing that we've got most into as a team are some of those techniques that are so accessible. Breath work, thinking more about our sleep and what kind of chronotype we are, and thinking about caffeine intake and things that you can control, that can, albeit have small impacts, but you total them up and they have a greater impact on you. So things that are accessible, being at one with nature, making sure that you are getting fresh air, that we spend 90% of our time in buildings and trying to get out and be a part of nature as much as possible. So now they are accessible to us, but they may not be accessible to everyone around the world. And I think that's a really, really important part of the wellness initiative, and what the Institute has to try and do, and I believe is doing, is making sure that those very basic things, fresh air, being access to nature,
taking a walk. But you, Simon, did something this morning. You told me. We're right here on the beach in Tel Aviv. It's so pretty. Who knew it would be so inviting? And I've been traveling on the Holy Land, thank God, because I took advantage of being all the way over here. My husband and I, and we, of course, were here during a couple Shabbats, Sabbath times. And it was inconvenient because there weren't as many taxis or buses, but we looked at each other and we were like, these people know how to relax. They take days of the week and they stop. They just stop the treadmill. And then I took time before the summer started to go swim in the ocean. And I caught a little cold while I was here. And I was like, oh, I finally feel good. This is amazing. And what'd you do this morning, Simon?
Yeah, I went for a swim in the sea. It was a bit disconcerting because no one else was swimming.
Except the sharks.
I did think that, but no, I'd been here once before. There was a swarm of jellyfish, but that's another story.
Oh, that's another story.
But no, it felt good. What a way to start the day.
And those are the things that anyone can do. There wasn't a price for you to get in the ocean, right? You didn't have to really pay an entry fee. And so when we can inspire people, and also every morning of the summit starts out with Louis Schwartzberg, who we've interviewed on the podcast, his beautiful nature films. And this time it's snippets from his movie Gratitude. Well, how many times do we stop and go, I appreciate you, to someone in our lives, or thank you for being my friend. You mean a lot to me. How? And the British, come on. How many times do they really do that?
Yeah, we don't clearly
Simon,
I'll speak for the
you.
nation. I'll speak for the nation. We're not very good at that. And but we do a lot of. The thing is that we need to try something, and that's what came through clearly from the series and the research. So we did a lot of research by speaking to the leaders across the wellness spectrum, and that's what's been so incredible working with the Global Wellness Institute, is being introduced to ex-US Surgeon Generals, Dr. Richard Carmona, right through to as kind of tech pioneers,
yes,
and World Tech, and Amir, who's hosting this event. And it's incredible the information that you get. But we also do a lot of work with BBC audiences. So we do surveys of BBC audiences, and we go on insights from them. I mean, some of those insights were fascinating, that nearly a third of people feel anxious or prone to anxiety. That I think it was nearly a third of people feel overworked.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's a really, when you think about
terrible.
Consider the size amount of that. But then always interestingly, I think a fifth of people are using some type of meditation tool or app as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Some really interesting insights. This isn't something that we can ignore in terms of society perhaps not feeling as well as they should. And the fact that there is a movement towards looking at techniques and tools that don't reside in traditional or conventional healthcare settings.
Yeah, and there's a big movement that you'll hear more about, functional medicine, where medical practitioners are going, I must incorporate meditation, nature, all of it. I was fascinated way back 1999. My husband and I visited Cuba, and because of the embargo, what have you, they don't have access to all the medical equipment and drugs. So long ago, they incorporated acupuncture, yoga, deep breathing in the hospitals. And of course, it helps. We know that, but it's taken a while to convince the other.
And is there evidence now building?
Yes. Susie just went to a conference in Thailand with a lot of evidence, and she can tell you more about that.
Right.
But tell me, did we make clear how you found the Institute? How did you guys, because it sounds like, Simon, what you were really doing, this wasn't a marketing ploy. This wasn't a big shiny object that you thought, we'll get more viewers. This decision to focus on wellness was really a reaction to your audience saying, I'm interested in all this.
Yeah. We want to delve deeper into the issues that are shaping society, and we want to tell that story in partnership with organizations. There's a weight of insight from audiences which guided us in this direction. We knew that wellness was being covered in part in other areas of the BBC. So all roads were leading in this direction. But what we were looking for was real hardcore evidence underpinning it all, and we were looking for a definition, and it wasn't difficult to find the Global Wellness Institute and start that conversation.
I was saying to you earlier before we started recording that even to find that some big reggaeton superstar wanted to make a mental wellness app, where did they go for guidance? The Global Wellness Institute's research on mental wellness. So it is gratifying to see that all these decades, I mean, for me, I started this industry when I was 11. So to just see the awareness build is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Yeah. It used to be they thought spas were hot tubs, and no one even knew what Reiki was, or I don't know, acupuncture even. But now it's a regular part of the conversation, and it sounds like the BBC is just reacting to that.
Very, very much so. But personally, I experienced what I suppose could be defined as wellness nearly 10 years ago. I was working on some films with Dr. Michael Dixon, who is a brilliant pioneering doctor in the UK. He has a surgery in Glastonbury, in the southwest of England.
Right.
And he regularly had patients coming in with common ailments, and it was the same type of patients incessantly coming back. And rather than prescribe them medicines, as you would tend to do, he would prescribe laughter therapy.
Laughter.
And dancing and gardening and joining a social club. Actual prescriptions for these things. And of course, what he knew he was doing was that these people were lonely, and he wanted to overcome loneliness. And of course, the results were phenomenal. The people didn't come back again, which is the best measurement. But it was met with skepticism. And Dr. Michael Dixon, he was formerly King Charles's personal doctor.
Oh.
So this is a doctor with some serious standing within the medical community, and yet it was met with skepticism.
Sure.
What was termed social prescribing, and so I was fascinated by that. You've got this evidence there, and it's just, and is it ever going to work in terms of conventional health settings and this idea of keeping people well before they get ill? But I think there was awareness is built on that generally.
Yeah. Well, I love that two things about your program. Well, three. One is that it's international. You're not just focusing on U.S. stories or British stories, but you go around the world.
Mm.
Do you know how many countries yet are represented? That's it.
No, I can't tell you.
I was trying to count last night when I was on the platform.
We've certainly been in South Korea. We've been in the Philippines. Across the US, we've been in the UK. So I would probably say about 6 or 7 regions around the world. So far.
And then you have 4 themes: body, mind, culture, and design.
Yes.
And to me, all those apply except culture. You'd be like, well, what's culture have to do with it? What does culture have to do with it?
A culture of wellness was important for us. We wanted to see how wellness was being embedded as a kind of a proactive approach. And I think that does start, you do see that in other parts of the world. And that was the fascinating part for us. You mentioned earlier that there's 5,000 years of
Chinese medicine.
Exactly. And I think that's what something we wanted to explore. Is fascinating going to an ancient tea ceremony in South Korea, in Seoul. Of course, thoughts with Seoul at the moment. It's just amazing to feel, even through the screen, I think, in that film, the calmness, what that brings, and the connection of sitting down with friends, family, to take that moment. A ceremony. And you think, well, that's been going for several thousand years. There must be something in that.
Something to it.
So I think I think the thing about culture wellness is that it's, in many respects, it's already embedded in what we do, and it might just be labeling it and just knowing that that's we talk about the unhealthy parts of society. There's lots of healthy parts of society and what we do and our rituals, and I suppose it's noticing those. So
I think it's, for our listeners, they really should understand that this BBC StoryWorks wellness series has been presented in a very modern way. It's not like you just sit and click on your Roku or whatever at home, but it's on your phone, it's on YouTube, it's on your computer. It's a platform that is not just 6-minute stories, but also articles. What else? How can you digest these stories?
So you can navigate around the website and on your phone and on
what is the website again?
InPursuitOfWellness.com.
In Pursuit of Wellness. I say it like a boring American, and you say it in such a lovely manner. InPursuitOfWellness.com.
But you can also go to www.bbc.com/storyworks/In Pursuit of Wellness.
Okay.
So there's many ways of finding it. We're also doing we do big campaign to BBC.com audiences around the globe, and we're going to be guiding them to the series online on your mobile device, everywhere else. But there's also a huge social media campaign we're doing from BBC StoryWorks platforms and, of course, all of the partners platforms. And so that goes across 12 months. That's LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You'll be able to see that. And that's really important because what we can do there is track sentiment and engagement and comments. We have set it up because we want to start a conversation. We're putting these stories out there. Really what's important is how people respond to them. I mentioned before, are people seeing themselves in these stories? We want to somehow gauge that. And we're going to be using other techniques. We've got a proprietary technique at the BBC called Science of Engagement, where we use AI facial coding, and we track eye movements and emotional peaks. It's a bit.
So you've been tracking me, I see.
It's a bit Clockwork Orange. But we are. Yeah, we're watching your every move. And
so let me just see. You don't have all the episodes up yet. How often will they be put up, or are they?
All the episodes are up on the website.
Oh.
On the dedicated immersive space. That's all up there. But as we get over the 12 months, there's different parts to the social media campaign. So we'll be releasing different edits and cuts of all the films on social media. We've also been interviewing all of the leaders right across the wellness spectrum. We'd be doing a separate social media campaign for that. Again, lots of different ways of putting these stories out there, because what we're looking to do is approach the different parts of the audience in those that are really, really into wellness already, and those that perhaps are more skeptical of it. We're going to see if we can win them over.
So you're taking the stories to where people are. In other words, you can find them through Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, all of it. And people, this is so fun. BBC StoryWorks, Hair and Heritage, Calm and Composed, Sleeping Well, a NASA astronaut's guide to time shifting. And I personally time shift when I travel across time zones.
Very good.
And Mickey Bayer-Clausen, did I say his name right?
Yeah.
Who you interviewed, is a good friend, and he's helped me go to Singapore, come to Tel Aviv. So these things are applicable in people's lives. This isn't just entertainment. This is like, wow, I should have tried that. Maybe I can try that, right?
Mickey's amazing because this is circadian science. This is the rhythms of our body. And there's, again, just incredible evidence and weight behind it. Hence, in that particular article, we talked to NASA astronaut and the way that they train their astronauts. So, there's a body weight behind this, and his particular app, Time Shifter. But really, the message there is that we're all different. Some of us are early risers, some of us are night owls, I think as it's termed, and it's simply a tool to understand what type of chronotype or what your circadian rhythm is, and if we can understand ourselves better, then we can adapt our lives accordingly.
And if you have ever met anyone traveling, jet lag is a bugaboo. I mean, people are like, oh my God. And here is a solution. We have proof. I traveled 17 hours home from Singapore, got up the next morning, not even a blink. But on the way there, I didn't follow it and I suffered. Okay, we'll say that. But I just want to say too that Global Wellness Institute, it is, to me, here's how it seems, Simon, that have you ever been searching for something and then all of a sudden people, they're like, well, we've been waiting for you to come.
Yeah, really.
It feels like you were searching for this wellness evidence, and here was the Global Wellness Institute. Simon, we're right here. How can we help? Am I wrong?
It was a bit like that. Yeah. There's certainly stories to tell, and we were like, we want to tell these stories. So this is just the start, and I think the crucial next stage is seeing. We love these stories. It's been such a pleasure learning more from a personal point of view, but just the whole team have been. It's been such a delight working with the Global Wellness Institute and working with all of the partners and the stories. Now we really want to gauge how audiences respond to this. We really want to see that this is shifting that comprehension of what wellness is, that it's affirming things that are already positive in society, and maybe triggers some other new conversations about how we integrate wellness
and
elsewhere.
Democratization of wellness to take away the barriers to entry. Yeah. So Simon, really, I know that it's changed your life now because you have to take cold showers and swim in the ocean early in the morning. We're sorry, but we're not sorry.
I've spent a year taking cold showers. Apparently I'm supposed to be feeling good at this stage. I'm still waiting for that moment.
Just remember, do it at the end. Do hot, then cold, okay? I'll give you that tip.
I've been doing it wrong.
Simon, it's the big time. We're so tickled to death to spread the word that BBC StoryWorks, in pursuit of wellness.com. Everybody out there, at least try 6 minutes. Take a look and see if you don't learn something. Thank you for being with us today, Simon.
Oh, it's a pleasure and it's a joy. By the way, I haven't mentioned it's 100 years the BBC have been around. It's our birthday.
Oh,
last
what a present.
Week, 100 years of storytelling. So it's just a pleasure to represent BBC StoryWorks and make and still inform, educate, and entertain. That was 100 years ago. They came up with that, and I think that's the idea.
At 100, they're going to look younger than ever with all this wellness.
Yeah, we're 100 years old, but we feel 50. That's the in wellness joke.
Okay, brilliant. Simon, thanks so much.
Thanks.